The email hit my inbox at 6:12 a.m., wedged between a grocery receipt and a calendar reminder from our wedding planner. No subject line, no name. Just a single sentence in the body. You deserve to know before you marry her. Attached was a file, grainy, muted, the kind of thing you don't open unless you're prepared for your life to split into. Before and after. I sat at our kitchen table in the half-dark, the apartment still quiet. My fiancée Madison was asleep down the hall. In 2 weeks we were supposed to stand in front of our families and promise forever. My finger hovered over the attachment. Every instinct I had screamed not to click it. Because if it was nothing, it would poison everything. And if it was something, I didn't know what I would do with that. I clicked. A hallway appeared on my screen, viewed from a high corner angle. Security footage. The timestamp in the bottom right was crisp and impossible to argue with. Ace 2:47 a.m. The camera watched an elevator open. People spilled out laughing, unsteady, dressed for the kind of night you post about when you want everyone to think you're living. Madison stepped out with them. I froze. Not because she was in a hotel hallway. She was at her Bachelorette weekend. That was expected. It was the next part that made my blood turn cold. She wasn't with her friends. She was with a group of men I didn't recognize. One of them guided her by the elbow like he'd done it before. Madison leaned into him, smiling too wide, moving like her body was trying to keep up with the alcohol. They stopped at a door. Room as N47s. A key card flashed. The lock blinked green. The door opened. Madison walked in. The door closed behind her. 2 weeks before my wedding, I watched my fiancé walk into a hotel room on camera, then disappear behind a door I couldn't open. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Part of me wanted to wake her up right then. To march into our bedroom, throw the laptop on the bed, and demand an explanation until my voice cracked. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, the part that didn't want to be manipulated by tears and half-truths, stayed perfectly still. Because I already knew what she would say. She would deny it. She would minimize it. She would blame the alcohol. She would swear it wasn't what it looked like. And if I confronted her without thinking, I'd end up in the one place she still had control. The story. What hurt most wasn't the betrayal. It was the lie she practiced afterward. The way she would wake up every day, kiss me, talk about flowers and seating charts, and act like there wasn't a locked door in my mind with 2:47 a.m. stamped across it like a warning. To understand why I didn't explode, you need to know how perfect everything looked before that night. My name is Jordan Matthews, and this is the story of how I disappeared 48 hours before my wedding, and why the people waiting at the venue never saw me again. I was 32 at the time, a software engineer with a stable job, a quiet life, and the kind of routine you don't question because it works. Madison and I had been together a little over 2 years. We met at a friend's backyard barbecue, one of those warm summer afternoons where you're holding a paper plate, making small talk, and then suddenly someone laughs at the same stupid joke you do and the rest of the noise fades. Madison was easy to love, not because she was perfect, but because she was attentive in the ways that matter. She'd bring me coffee when I was buried in deadlines. She'd leave little sticky notes on the fridge. Don't forget your lunch, or you've got this today. When my dad went into the hospital for a minor surgery, she drove an hour each way just to sit with my mom so she wouldn't be alone. That's the version of Madison I held on to when I opened that email. We got engaged the week after Christmas. I proposed in the park near our first apartment, fingers numb from the cold, her cheeks red, her eyes wet. She said yes so fast I almost laughed from relief. The wedding was set for June 15th at Riverside Estate, one of those restored old venues outside the city with gardens and white string lights, and a coordinator who speaks in calm sentences even when everyone else is panicking. 150 guests, families excited, deposits paid, a whole future scheduled down to the minute. From the outside, we were the couple people like to point at and say, "That'll be you someday." But even back then, there was one person in our orbit who never felt like she was rooting for us. Brittany Chen, Madison's maid of honor. She was the kind of friend who smiled while she measured you. Every time we were together, it felt like she was silently grading me, my job, my clothes, the way I spoke, the way I held Madison's hand, like she was deciding whether I was a phase Madison would outgrow. Madison brushed it off whenever I mentioned it. "That's just Brittany," she'd say. She's protective. Maybe. Or maybe she was protective of her influence. When the Bachelorette trip was announced, I thought it would be harmless. Until the first call came in. Madison's Bachelorette trip was Brittany's idea from the start. Vegas. Brittany announced one night over dinner like she was unveiling a prize. 3 nights, shows, pool day, nice dinner, and 1 real night out. She emphasized real the way people do when they mean something else. Madison looked at me across the table, excited and slightly guilty in the same breath. It'll just be the girls, she said quickly. Nothing crazy. I swear. I smiled, because what else do you do when the person you love is glowing with anticipation? Have fun, I told her. You deserve a break from wedding planning. And I meant it. We'd been living under spreadsheets and guest lists for months. Madison had earned a weekend where she didn't have to think about chair covers. Still, the more Brittany talked, the more my stomach tightened. She kept pushing this idea that the trip needed to be legendary, that Madison needed a proper send-off, that a bachelorette party wasn't just a vacation. It was a story you told later. Madison wasn't that kind of person. She liked nice dinners and laughing too loud with her friends. She wasn't reckless. Brittany, on the other hand, treated boundaries like suggestions. The night before Madison left, I tried to say what I needed to say without sounding controlling. Hey, I said as we folded laundry, keeping my voice casual. I'm not worried about you. I trust you. I just don't love the way Brittany keeps framing this like it's supposed to be a last night of freedom thing. Madison paused, a t-shirt in her hands. It's not like that, she said, but her eyes flicked away for half a second. I'm not telling you what to do, I added. Just promise me one thing. If anything feels off, if you feel unsafe or pressured or like you've had too much, call me. No matter what time it is, I'll come get you. I don't care what anyone thinks. Her face softened. She walked over and kissed me, slow and reassuring. I promise, she said. You're my person. Not Vegas. Not Brittany. You. The next morning she left with a suitcase and a grin, and I watched her Uber pull away feeling a little ridiculous for worrying. For the first day, everything was normal. Selfies at the hotel, a picture of drinks at dinner, Madison texting me, miss you with a heart. Then the second night, the messages stopped earlier than usual. By midnight, nothing. By 1 a.m., still nothing. I told myself it was fine. She was out. She was having fun. She was asleep. At 3 a.m., my phone started ringing like someone was trying to wake me from a dream. The number on my screen wasn't saved in my contacts. A Nevada area code. I sat up so fast the sheets slid off my chest. For one wild second I thought Madison had been arrested or robbed or worse. I answered on the second ring. Hello, Matthews, a woman's voice said. Professional, controlled. My name is Linda Morrison. I'm calling from Desert Springs Hospital in Las Vegas. Madison Carter listed you as her emergency contact. My heart dropped straight through my body. Is she okay? She's stable. Linda said carefully. The way people do when they've said this sentence too many times. She was brought in a short time ago after becoming severely intoxicated. We treated her and monitored her. She's responsive now, but she needs someone to stay with her for the next 24 hours. Severely intoxicated. Madison barely drank at home. 2 glasses of wine and she'd be giggly and sleepy. Whatever had happened out there wasn't oops, too many margaritas. It was an emergency. I'm in New York, I said, already grabbing my phone charger, my mind racing. I can be on a flight in a few hours. There's no need to rush to the point of danger. Linda replied, but yes, someone should be with her. If you're coming, call us when you land. I thanked her, hung up, and just stood there for a second in the dark. Listening to my own breathing, I called Madison's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I called Brittany. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. By the 3rd attempt, my hands were shaking, not from anger yet but from fear. I booked the earliest flight I could get without doing something reckless. Airport at dawn. Red-eye eyes, no coffee, stomach hollow. Madison finally called around 9 a.m. Her voice sounded thin, like she was speaking through cotton. Jordan? She whispered. I'm so sorry? What happened? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know, she said quickly. I swear I don't. We were at a club and Brittany kept ordering shots and I don't remember after that. I woke up in the hospital. That's it. Nothing happened. I just drank too much. The nothing happened. People always say that sentence the same way. Like, if they say it fast enough, it becomes true. Are you alone? I asked. There was a pause. Brittany's, she's at the hotel, Madison said. The girls are there. I told them not to come. I'm embarrassed. That didn't make sense. If my fiancé was in a hospital, her best friends should have been in the waiting room. Not sleeping off brunch plans. I'm on my way, I said. Just stay put. When I landed that afternoon and got to the hospital, Madison looked pale and exhausted, a hospital band on her wrist and yesterday's makeup smudged under her eyes. She tried to smile when she saw me, but it didn't reach. I held her, careful, steady, relief and dread mixing in my chest. She was alive. She was here. But something was missing, and the story she was telling didn't fit the empty spaces. The pictures online told one story. The gaps told another. We flew home the next day. Madison's slept most of the flight with her head on my shoulder, and if you'd looked at us from the aisle, you would have thought it was just a rough night. One of those. Vegas got too loud. Stories people laugh about later. But I wasn't laughing. Back at our apartment, Madison moved like someone walking through fog. She drank water because I handed it to her. She ate a few bites because I asked. And every time I brought up Vegas, her whole body tightened like she was bracing for impact. I just drank too much. She repeated, eyes fixed on the TV even when it wasn't on. That's all. Brittany texted me the first time that evening. Ask Brittany CC, she's fine. Stop stressing her out. Wedding soon. A not how is she. Not I'm sorry. Just a warning. The other bridesmaids started posting again. Brunch photos, selfies by the pool, a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking like nothing had happened, smiling captions, inside jokes. A neat little narrative, wild weekend, great memories. But there was a gap. Thursday night stopped around 11 p.m., then nothing until Saturday afternoon. No club photos, no late-night hotel room mirror selfies, no girls in the elevator shots. An entire stretch of time swallowed, like someone had scrubbed it clean. I told myself to let it go. I wanted to let it go. The wedding was close, and Madison looked fragile in a way that made me feel protective instead of suspicious. Then she started jumping when I walked into a room. I'd come in from taking out the trash, and she'd flinch like she hadn't heard the door. I'd ask if she wanted tea, and she'd answer too fast, too bright. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. On Tuesday night while we were sitting at the table addressing final vendor emails, I tried again. Mad. I said gently. Your friends weren't at the hospital. That doesn't feel normal. Are you sure something didn't happen that you're scared to tell me? Her eyes snapped up, sharp, defensive, almost angry. Nothing happened, Jordan. The tone hit me harder than the words. Okay, I said, holding up my hands. I'm not trying to interrogate you. Then stop, she said, voice cracking. Please, I can't do this right now. The wedding is stressing me out. Vegas was embarrassing. I just want it to be over. I watched her, and for a split second I saw something behind her expression that didn't look like stress. It looked like fear. I nodded like I believed her, like I accepted it. But that night, after she fell asleep, I sat in the dark on the couch and stared at the blank TV screen, replaying every missing hour. The next afternoon, a small envelope showed up with my name on it, and no return address. It wasn't in our mailbox. It was sitting on the welcome mat like someone had placed it there gently, carefully, like they didn't want the neighbors to notice, but they wanted me to. Plain white envelope. My name written in neat block letters. No return address, no stamp. Whoever dropped it off had been close enough to know where we lived and bold enough to come to our door. My stomach tightened. I stood there for a full minute, keys still in my hand, staring at it like it might explode. When I finally picked it up, it felt heavier than it should have, like paper shouldn't weigh that much. Madison wasn't home yet. She'd gone to a final dress fitting with her mom, something she'd been looking forward to for months. The timing felt intentional. Inside the envelope was a folded note and a small USB drive taped to a piece of cardboard. The note was short, fast. This, you seem like a good man. You don't deserve to marry someone who can look you in the eye and lie. I said, what's on this drive happened during the Bachelorette trip. The timestamp is real. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because you deserve the truth before June 15th. Sef, no signature, no explanation, just a single sentence at the bottom that made my throat go dry. Check the timestamp, check the room number. Then check her story. My hand started shaking, not violently, but enough that I had to set the note down on the counter so it wouldn't crinkle. For a moment, I considered throwing the whole thing away. Because if I opened that drive, I couldn't unsee it, I couldn't unknow it, and part of me still wanted to protect the life we'd planned. The venue, the families, the future I'd already pictured 1,000 times. But another part of me, the part that heard Madison's too fast nothing happened, the part that noticed Brittany's cold text, needed the truth more than it needed comfort. I sat down at my desk, plugged the USB into my laptop, and waited for the files to load like I was waiting for a verdict. One folder appeared. Yes, Desert Palms Hotel, Holloway Cam 0601, 20:15 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. Say my chest tightened. Desert Palms was the hotel Madison's group had stayed at. I'd seen it in the selfies. I clicked the file. The screen flickered. A hotel hallway came into view from a high angle. The timestamp in the corner was clear, bright, unmistakable, the kind of detail you can't argue with. I leaned closer without realizing it. At first, nothing happened, just empty carpet and closed doors. Then the elevator opened, and Madison stepped out, not with her friends, with strangers. My pulse didn't race. It slowed, like my body was trying to conserve energy for what it already knew was coming. What I was watching wasn't a rumor. It was a timeline. And the worst part of a timeline is that it doesn't care what you want to believe. I didn't watch it once. I watched it until I couldn't pretend it meant something else. The footage didn't have sound, which somehow made it worse. No voices to soften it. No explanation to cling to. Just bodies moving through a hallway under fluorescent lights that made everything look flat and unforgiving. Madison stumbled a little as she stepped out of the elevator. She was laughing. Big, loose laughter that didn't look like her. A man beside her steadied her with his hand at her elbow. Another leaned in too close, saying something that made the group behind them grin. 4 men. None of them were women from her bridal party. None of them were familiar. Madison wasn't being dragged. She wasn't fighting. She was moving with them, unsteady, smiling, letting herself be guided like she'd stopped making decisions and started letting the night make them for her. They reached a door. As 8:47's, one man pulled out a key card. He swiped it, the lock blinked green, and then there was a moment, small, almost nothing, that froze in my chest. Madison hesitated with her hand on the doorframe, like her body remembered boundaries even if her mind didn't. The man closest to her leaned in, said something, and she nodded. Then she walked inside. All of them did. The door clicked shut. I sat perfectly still, staring at that closed door on my screen like it was a coffin lid. I dragged the timeline forward in small jumps. 10 minutes, 20:40. The hallway stayed empty, quiet, indifferent. At 3:47 a.m. the door opened. The men came out first. Laughing, slapping each other on the shoulder, moving with the loose swagger of people who thought the night belonged to them. One of them turned and said something back into the room, like a joke. Then Madison stepped out, and my stomach turned. Her hair was tangled, not in a fun, party messy way. In a way that looked like she'd been through something. Her dress hung wrong on her shoulders. She didn't laugh. She didn't even look up. She stood in the hallway, swaying slightly, her hands pressed to the wall as if she needed it to stay upright. And then she slid down to the floor. Right there, outside the door, she sat with her knees drawn up, head bent, shoulders shaking. Crying. I watched her wipe at her face with the back of her hand like she was trying to erase the last 90 minutes. Like if she rubbed hard enough, she could undo it. A minute later, a woman appeared from a different door down the hall. Brittany. She moved fast, looking left and right before crouching beside Madison. She didn't look shocked. She didn't look confused. She looked prepared. Like she'd expected to find her there. Brittany helped Madison up, whispered something in her ear, and guided her toward the elevator. Madison didn't look back at room 847. Neither did Brittany. I paused the video and stared at the timestamp, my chest tight, my hands cold. Whatever happened behind that door, whether Madison fully chose it, whether she was too intoxicated to understand what she was walking into, whether she regretted it the moment the lock clicked. I knew one thing for certain. She came home to me and told me nothing happened, and Brittany helped. That was the part that made my blood run colder than jealousy ever could. Because betrayal hurts. But betrayal plus a cover-up is something else entirely. It's not just a broken promise. It's someone deciding you don't deserve the truth. I didn't storm into the bedroom. I didn't smash my laptop. I didn't text her or call her friends. I did what I do when my world stops making sense. I started gathering facts. I copied the video file to my hard drive. I took screenshots with the timestamp visible. I wrote down the room number. I saved the anonymous note and scanned it. Then, with a knot in my stomach I couldn't swallow down, I logged into Madison's cloud account, something we'd shared access to for years without thinking. I searched one word Ace Vegas DOS. Ace, a group chat popped up immediately, and the first message I saw made my jaw tighten. A Britney Ayers reminder: what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Madison doesn't need Jordan knowing any of this. That's when I realized it wasn't one bad night. It was a group decision to lie to me. I scrolled up through the messages until my eyes blurred. The chat was 8 bridesmaids deep. Names I recognized from engagement parties and dress fittings. Women who had smiled at me and asked how wedding planning was going, as if they weren't holding a secret like a lit match. The messages started the morning after the night on the footage. Madison's, I don't remember anything after midnight. Why does my head feel like this? Britney S, because you went hard, but you're fine. Don't spiral, sass Madison. Brit, I'm scared. Did I do something stupid? Fess Britney, no, nothing happened. You flirted. That's it. Madison asses, I woke up and my dress was wrong. Please tell me I didn't. She cuss Britney sis stop. Seriously, you're getting married. You don't need to dig into this. Then came the part that turned my stomach. One bridesmaid, Rachel, someone I'd only met once, typed what any decent person would type. Rachel, she needs to tell Jordan. If she can't remember, that's not nothing. She needs help and he deserves the truth. Ace Britney's response was instant. Ace Britney cease Rachel, don't start. You want to ruin her life over one night. As his Rachel, it's his life too. As for Britney squeered, then maybe you shouldn't be in this wedding party. So after that, the chat went quiet. Not because they agreed with Rachel. Because Britney had just made the rules clear. Lie or lose your place. I leaned back in my chair, nausea rising in slow waves. I kept thinking about the footage. Madison crying in the hallway, Britney appearing like she'd been assigned the cleanup. I thought about Madison's hospital call, her shaky voice saying she didn't remember, insisting. Nothing happened. Here's what I can say honestly. I don't know everything that happened behind that door. And I'm not going to pretend I do. When alcohol is involved, when memory is missing, there are serious lines. Lines that should trigger honesty, medical care, and accountability, not group chat slogans and silence. If Madison had come to me and said, something happened, and I'm scared, I would have dropped everything. I would have protected her. I would have helped her get help. But that isn't what happened. What happened was a decision, made again and again, day after day, to keep me in the dark, to let me plan a wedding while everyone around her rehearsed a story, to treat the truth like an inconvenience. And that's the point of no return. Because even if the worst part of that night was confusion and regret, the worst part of the weeks after was calculated. The lying wasn't an accident. It was teamwork. I could confront Madison right then. I could wait until she got home and put the laptop in front of her and demand she explain every second. But I already knew how that would go. Tears, denial, partial truths. A new version of the story shaped to save the wedding. And the scariest part was this: a piece of me might have wanted to believe her, because believing her would be easier than admitting it was over. So I made a plan that didn't require her permission. I didn't want to fight. I wanted my life back. I started moving like I was in a different reality, one where emotion was a luxury and decisions were survival. First, I did the clean things. The things a lawyer would tell you to do if they were sitting beside you, not after the damage was done. Madison and I had a joint account for wedding expenses and rent. I logged in, documented the balance, and transferred only what was mine, half, down to the dollar. I didn't empty anything. I didn't punish her financially. I just removed myself from the part of our life she no longer had the right to control. Then I changed passwords on my personal accounts, email banking, cloud storage, not because I thought Madison was malicious, but because panic makes people do desperate things. And Britney seemed like the kind of person who would justify anything as protecting her friend. And next I called my parents. I didn't tell them the story over the phone. I told them I needed them to be home and to trust me. When I arrived, my mother took one look at my face and started crying before I said a word. I showed them the video. I showed them the messages. My father watched in silence, jaw clenched so hard the muscle jumped. When it ended, he didn't say, "Maybe you should talk to her." He just said, "What do you need?" What I needed was distance and control. I packed a duffel bag with essentials, clothes, documents, laptop, the external drive with the footage and screenshots. I didn't take furniture. I didn't take gifts. I didn't take anything that would turn this into a fight over property. Then I wrote a letter. Not a dramatic one. Not a screaming one. A clean one. Madison, I received evidence from your Bachelorette trip. I watched the footage. I read the messages. You told me nothing happened. Your friends helped you keep that lie alive. I cannot marry someone who can practice deception while planning a wedding. The wedding is cancelled. Do not contact me except through email for logistical matters. I printed screenshots. I included the timestamp, the room number, and the group chat lines that prove the cover-up wasn't in my head. Then I chose timing, because if I gave her the letter too early, she'd have time to spin the narrative privately, to shape what her parents, the wedding party, the venue coordinator heard first. If I gave it too late, I'd be dragged into a confrontation I didn't want. So I scheduled it for the moment when the truth would collide with reality, the final countdown, when denial has nowhere to hide. 48 hours before the wedding, I sent the letter, then turned my phone off. I drove west until the sky turned the color of steel and my thoughts stopped chasing each other in circles. I didn't have a grand destination. I just needed to be far enough away that no one could show up at a door and force a conversation I wasn't ready to have. That night, in a motel off the highway, I turned my phone back on, just long enough to see what I already knew would be there. It lit up like a slot machine, as 38 missed calls, as Kathin a face 271 face save Madison, Diane and Richard, her parents, Brittany, 2 groomsmen, the wedding coordinator, a number I didn't recognize that I assumed was someone's aunt with a strong opinion. The texts came in waves. Asser Madison, please call me, please. I can explain. Eat S. Madison Seke. This isn't what you think. S. Madison 8 airs. You're ruining everything. Edis Madison 8A. So Jordan, don't do this. Please. Then the tone shifted. S. Madison cut us, you coward. You're really going to run. Addis Madison Esclaf after everything I did for you. Her mother's messages were sharper. Sex, how dare you humiliate my daughter. Seek Diane Carter's. If you share private footage, we will pursue legal action. Address Diane Carter. You owe us an explanation. Brittany's were the worst. Not because they hurt, but because they were exactly what I expected. Brittany, Kassir, you're overreacting. Under Brittany. She was drunk and vulnerable. Asked Brittany Crust this should have stayed private. You're destroying her life, private. That word again. Like my life was a detail. I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't need the last word. I needed the last boundary. The next morning, Saturday, the day we were supposed to get married, I got a single email from my best man, weddings cancelled. Madison showed up. She's saying you abandoned her. Her parents are furious. Half the guests are already here. What the hell is going on? I stared at the screen for a long time. Grief hit first. Not for the wedding itself. The venue, the money, the optics. For the version of my life where Madison and I were getting married today. Where I was nervous about vows instead of learning how betrayal changes your nervous system. Then relief followed, quiet and steady, because I was not trapped. Then, buried among the chaos, one message came through that didn't ask anything from me. It was from a number I didn't have saved. Rachel Thornton Huntershill Jordan. This is Rachel. I'm one of the bridesmaids. I don't know if you'll read this, but I tried to get Madison to tell you the truth after Vegas. Brittany shut it down. You didn't deserve any of this. I'm sorry. I read it twice. Then I replied with the only thing that felt honest. Thank you for trying to do the right thing. That took courage. For the first time in days, my chest loosened slightly. I thought that would be the end of it. That the story would stay split, her version and mine. I was wrong. A week later, the version everyone heard at first started collapsing. The truth doesn't stay buried when too many people have to carry it. At first, Madison's circle told the cleanest story possible. Asser Jordan panicked. Jordan ran. Jordan abandoned her over rumors. But rumors don't come with timestamps. And guilt has a way of loosening tongues, especially when a wedding gets cancelled and everyone is looking for someone to blame. Within days, 2 of the bridesmaids quietly stepped away from Brittany. One of them reached out to a mutual friend and admitted there had been a situation. that night at the hotel, and that Brittany had forced everyone into silence to protect Madison. When that reached Madison's parents, their anger changed shape. They stopped threatening me and started asking questions they should have asked in Vegas. I didn't take satisfaction in that. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. I moved 2 states away and took a remote contract position through a friend in tech. Something simple. Something that didn't require me to explain my personal life to coworkers who would inevitably Google my name and find wedding registry leftovers. I rented a small place with bare walls and too much silence, and for the first month, I slept like my body was still bracing for the next shock. Then I started therapy. Not because I wanted to fix myself, but because I didn't want the betrayal to harden into something permanent. I didn't want to become the guy who distrusts every smile, who hears a phone buzz and assumes the worst. My therapist asked me, early on, what I wanted. Peace, I said, and control over my own story. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to post the footage. I didn't need to humiliate Madison publicly to feel whole again. Walking away was the boundary. Months later, Madison sent one final message. Not a string of texts, not a rage-filled voicemail. A long email, written carefully. Like she'd finally stopped trying to win and started trying to be honest. She admitted she'd been pressured to drink more than she wanted. She admitted there were hours she couldn't account for. She admitted the cover-up wasn't protecting me. It was protecting the wedding. Protecting herself from consequences. Protecting the version of her life she wanted more than the truth. She apologized for the betrayal, but more than that, she apologized for the weeks of lying afterward, for waking up next to me and acting like my trust was something she could borrow without paying back. She ended with, "Say I understand if you never forgive me. I just needed to finally tell the truth." I read it once, then again. Then I closed my laptop, and I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. Sometimes it's accepting that the person who hurt you doesn't get access to you anymore. Not even for an apology. I'm not telling you this story because I think I handled everything perfectly. I didn't. I made mistakes too. I ignored signals because love makes you optimistic. I trusted people who hadn't earned it because I wanted the future to be real. But I do know this. The moment you realize someone is more committed to protecting an image than protecting your heart, you're already in danger. If I could go back, I wouldn't change the decision. I'd change the moment I ignored the first red flag. Here's what I learned, and it wasn't just about Madison. Trust isn't built on chemistry or memories or wedding plans. It's built on truth, especially the kind that's inconvenient, embarrassing, or painful. Because anyone can be loving when things are easy. The real test is what they do when the truth might cost them something, and pay attention to the people around your relationship. A friend group will tell you who someone becomes under pressure. The right friends don't chant slogans like, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." They don't coordinate stories. They don't silence the one person trying to do the right thing. They push you toward honesty, accountability, and help. Most importantly, boundaries aren't punishment, they're self-respect. Walking away wasn't me winning. It was me refusing to hand my future to someone who'd already proven she could lie to protect herself. So I want to ask you, what would you do in my position? Confront immediately, cancel the wedding publicly, or vanish quietly the way I did? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them, and a lot of people going through something similar do too. If you want more stories about betrayal, justice, and the quiet power of choosing yourself, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is silence, and the cleanest win is walking away.